Hi, and last week Ian Hazakostas, Game Director of World of Warcraft, sat down with Law, one of the community managers, and discussed what's coming up in patch 7.3. I've already done the first video where I talked in general about what's coming up there and what they said about it, but there was one particular topic that needed its own video, and that is the Netherlight Crucible. The reason it needs its own video is, first of all, they said quite a lot about it. The other thing is, it is the key gameplay of 7.3 in terms of the power of your character. So for anyone who is doing any sort of hard mode content, whether it be PvP or more especially PvE, Mythic Plus Dungeons, raiding, that sort of thing, the Netherlight Crucible is really what you want to know about. Now, this system brings with it quite a lot of RNG, which has got a lot of people not very happy. So let's explain first of all what Blizzard's take on it. Now, I have already done a video on how the Netherlight Crucible works, so I'll put a link to that in the description below. You should probably watch that first to make sure you sort of know what it's about. I'll recap a couple of things. So when 7.3 comes out and you unlock the Netherlight Crucible, which takes a little while, but it doesn't come out to the third week anyway. So it's like first week, some content comes out for 7.3. Second week, some more content comes out. Third week, the Netherlight Crucible. Now, if you've done all the first 2 weeks of content, you should be able to unlock it fairly quickly, Blizzard say. So initially, you are going to be able to, with each of your relics, basically each of your relics gets a little talent tree, a mini talent tree. And the first point in it, which you can all click on straight away, is +5 item levels. Now this is fine, this just raises your power. It's also the only aspect of it that works in rated PvP. So arenas, rated battlegrounds, the other trait aspects to it will not work, but the +5 item levels does. Now, it's on to the second and third rows of this where a lot of the issue is, because it's RNG. Your relics will have, on the second row, there's random abilities which are completely new. It might do some damage, it might do a bit of healing, it might increase a particular stat like mastery or something like that. Then on the third row, there are random traits. Now, each of us has 9 traits that can appear on a relic. In fact, Blizzard were talking about that. I'll come to that in a moment. So there's 3 of them on the bottom row, and when you get to the appropriate artifact level, which many of us will not be at when this thing launches, then you choose one of them. Now, Blizzard's argument here is, yes, we understand that some of you get really good traits and some of you get really bad ones. But if we give you a random choice of 3, well, surely one of them's got to be all right. The downside is actually, ironically, when I tested this on the PTR, one of my relics, actually there wasn't a good one. There were 2 that are completely useless on almost every... Well, there's one that was useless on every fight because it's the trait that buffs my Flash of Light, worthless. The other one reduces the cooldown of my Blessing of Protection. So in terms of current content, Tomb of Sargeras, sure, you can use Blessing of Protection on Mistress Sassine, so a slightly shorter cooldown may, from time to time, come in useful. The same thing on Kill Jaden, it can potentially be used. So again, maybe it'll be useful, maybe it won't. But on the other fight, it's completely useless, so you wouldn't really want to select it. And then the third one technically could be good in some situations. It's the one that buffs my active cleave, my Divine Storm. And you think, well, that's actually a really good trait. Something like Mythic Plus Dungeons or an AoE fight, sure. But on a single target fight, completely useless. So in actual fact, although Blizzard are saying, well, surely one of them must be all right, in actual fact, there's a situation where it's like, no, actually. But generally speaking, you could consider yourself unlucky for that to happen. The other thing that Blizzard were talking about, before I come back to the Netherlight Crucible really, was those 9 traits. Because some people were asking in this, why is it that my Bis relic never turns up in the raids? It's just never in the raids. The only way I can get it is to farm this particular dungeon. They used the example before Tomb of Sargeras came out of the Bis Fire relic for Retribution Paladins. He does mention us on every Q&A. I think he's got a soft spot for us, actually. And the fact that it's only appearing in one dungeon, it's never really appeared... it was on Xavius, actually, so I'm not quite sure what it's talking about there. But, you know, but with anyone, your Bis trait may not appear in a particular raid. It's now appeared in Tomb of Sargeras, as it happens. So you've got to farm the dungeon. Now, what they said was the reason for that is because traits are given a number 1 to 9, and when you put a relic that drops off a particular boss, it has like trait 4 or 5 or 7 or something like that. And of course, there's different specs want that relic. And for someone, it might be their best trait, but for someone else, it might be their worst trait. And it's to do with that system. And they said there's nothing really they can do about that. And this is probably true now, though I mean, I was talking about this with someone from the guild when they announced this, and I said the problem with this, in my opinion, is that Blizzard often seem to make a fairly common design philosophy error. And that is that they keep working on the assumption that everything that they design is of equal value. They assume that all the talents on a particular row are of equal worth, and maybe some are better in some situations and some are better than others. And the same sort of philosophy seems to be assigned to traits. They insist all the way through alpha and beta, they'll insist this one might not look good, but in this situation it'll actually be really good. And therefore they ascribe equal worth to all of them. It's not of equal worth. So what they'd have been better off doing is identifying, look, I don't mind them designing some traits that are useless. You know, that's okay. But at least be aware of which ones are really good and desirable and which ones are going to be causing dismay in the eyes of people who get them. And give them numbers according to that. So why wasn't number 1 what they would consider probably one of the best traits for everyone? And it might change around a little bit, but who matters? You know, if it changes a little bit, if the first 4 traits, numbers 1, 2, 3 and 4, are all really good ones for each spec, and let's say 7, 8 and 9 are the ones that are largely going to be worthless except in niche situations, then they easily could have had a situation where good traits were dropping in every raid tier for every class and spec. So that, to my mind, although Blizzard can say there's nothing they can do about it now, true, they could have done something about it sometime in the past. But coming back to the Netherlight Crucible, so we're going to have a situation now where you're going to, on 7.3, comes out, or 2 weeks later, you open the Netherlight Crucible, that's where you're going to see what your relics are worth now. You might think that the traits on your relics at the moment are pretty good. You're going to now see what they're actually worth. So you're going to open it up. You're going to look at the second row. Maybe you'll be able to unlock them, maybe you won't. But you're going to have a look at them anyway and see, oh, actually, that one's really nice. Yeah, great. Oh, no, they're both really bad. Boo-hoo. And then you're going to look at the traits on the third row. Again, you're not going to be able to unlock all of those until 75, but you will be able to unlock the first one at 69. And again, you'll be looking at something thinking, oh, that's pretty good. That's not so good. Now, it is a better system, I have to say. They did want to introduce this double trait on a relic system in 7.2. If you look at the last point that you spend on your order hall research at the moment, it's this chance to get extra artifact power when you do world quests and stuff. That was a late addition. What that was going to be was that your relics get a random second trait on it. They were going to have it so that you couldn't get a double trait. So if your bis trait and you had a relic of it, you wouldn't be able to randomly roll that same trait. So there was no, they didn't want this difference between highs and lows, but it was not very satisfactory at the time. So they scrapped it to be reintroduced now. Now they have improved it. It has to be said. I want credit where it's due. So they're giving us a choice, at least the choice of 3. Now, I know that I went on about, you know, the fact that on my fire relic, at least on the PTR, maybe it'll be different when it goes live, I don't know, I bet it doesn't. But at least on the PTR, it's, they're actually quite bad traits. They're not traits I would want to slot. But at least you have a choice, and I could probably be unlucky there. Now, here's another thing. This is a call to action here. What it means is, what you now need to do is, if you get any relics, let's say they're not an upgrade, so you're not going to slot them into your weapon. But let's say that's just because they're as good. You coin a boss and you get a relic that's the same one you've already got in. Don't disenchant it or vendor it. Keep it, because it might well be that the traits on it are better. What are currently hidden traits are better than what you've got slotted. So when the Netherlight Crucible opens, maybe you look at it and go, actually, this is better. I'm going to slot that instead. So then that comes on to the fourth slot in the Netherlight Crucible. That's where you insert the gem or the relic that you've got in your bags to see what its traits are like, because there is a big problem with the system in that if you get something that's a small upgrade, well, actually, if the traits on it, the hidden traits, are not as good as the one you've currently got slotted, it could actually be a downgrade. You could be breaking your old relic and replacing it for one that's not as good. Because make no mistake, the effects on these hidden effects can potentially be very powerful if you're lucky. So you have to know in advance. So they've put something in, fair play, where you have a fourth box on the Netherlight Crucible. You can put a gem in, a relic, keep calling it gem, relic, speculatively, see what abilities it has on it. You can look at it and go, no, it's not as good, I'm not going to slot it. Downside is, you've got to be in possession of that relic to do so. So let's say you're doing a guild raid, Master Looter, relic drops. You're looking at it and people are bidding, you know, they're saying whether it's their BIS trait or something like that, or minor upgrade, major upgrade, well, however it is you do it. And people are just going to be flummoxed by this. They're just going to be thinking, I don't know whether it's an upgrade. It's like, you know, let's say, just make it simple. Two people want it. And you're saying, well, you know, this is, at the moment, this would be an upgrade for you. So it's an upgrade for me. It might be not a big upgrade, but it's an upgrade. But actually, you might get this relic, take it to the Netherlight Crucible, put it in and go, oh my God, no, it's not an upgrade. Well, the other person didn't get it. It might have been an upgrade for them. It's really harsh. It's a really harsh system. And in some ways, it's a little bit like the tier token. Like when everyone's got the tier tokens, you give it out for people to roll them to see if it becomes Warforged or Titan Forged or something. So you might get a situation where, let's say, the one you've currently got has a socket in it and you do it and it Warforges 5 item levels above. And you think, I'd still rather the socket. Well, maybe someone else would have gone, well, I'd have had the plus 5 item levels. So, but this is worse because you can sort of find out before you slot it, but not until you've taken it there. So it's really annoying from that point of view. That yes, it's good that we can see them, but it's really bad that we can't see them on the boss itself, that we have to take them to Netherlight Crucible. And then that brings me on to the second point. Now, one topic that constantly raises its head, especially in Legion, where itemization has been, I don't want to say badly done, but it's been such a headache, because we can have this situation where you've got something that's a much higher item level than a piece we're currently wearing, but it's not an upgrade because the stats on it are appalling. And people keep talking about, why don't we have reforging back? Now, Ian Hazacostas, to his credit, and I have to say this, he tackled some tough questions. I know everyone will say in Q&As like this, they cherry pick the questions, and of course they do. But he did not shy away from talking about some important stuff. And they did mention the reforging as well, because what had happened was, when reforging went away, first of all, mostly reforging was there to make sure we had our hit and expertise caps. But it also helped us utilise bits of gear with less suitable secondary stats on them. And that's what we want it for now. And one of Blizzard's arguments at the time, and I hesitate to say it was one of them, I'm also going to add in here that Ian Hazacostas himself said he was not in favour of dropping reforging when it happened. But unfortunately, he has now said that he agrees with the decision. But one of the main arguments was they didn't like the system whereby someone got an item but couldn't equip it straight away because they'd have to reforge it first. So they'd have to wait till the end of the raid, go to the reforger or get the mount out or whatever, and then reforge it. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. You're going to get a relic, and unless it's way higher item level than what you currently have, and I mean way higher item level, or unless what you've currently got slotted has appalling abilities and traits on it, you are not going to slot it straight away either. You are actually going to wait until you go to the Netherlight Crucible, and then you're going to have a look at it first. This is exactly the same argument against reforging that should apply to the Netherlight Crucible. Now, when Ian tackled this question, what he basically said was, oh yeah, but with reforging, you had to reforge everything. You know, you reforged all your gear, not just one item. Bit of a cop-out. I'm pleased that he answered it, and I give full credit to him to actually tackling what would be a question that I can imagine most developers would want to ignore completely. But what a cop-out of an answer. Because apart from anything else, we mostly used add-ons for it anyway. You just add on, click a button, right? Put your stat weights in. Here, sort it. So that's not good enough for my view. If they're going to say that the main reason not to have reforging was because it meant you had to go somewhere at the end of the raid and do something with it before you could equip it, that very same argument occurs here. So that's, you know, double standards straight away. It's like either you bring reforging back because we would like that, or this shouldn't be like this. You should be able to view it, view the abilities on it while it's still on the boss, while people are deciding whether it's an upgrade or not, without taking it to the Crucible. I can imagine the only real reason they don't do that is because of gameplay, not gameplay, sorry, background reasons, like lore reasons, story-wise reasons, that we should be taking it physically to the Crucible. I think it's a role-playing reason rather than a gameplay reason. But that's just my view on that one. So, yes, the Netherlight Crucible is going to bring in an extra layer of infuriating RNG for some players, because the effects on these are significant, and the difference between getting a good one and a bad one is very significant. Blizzard have tried to smooth it out by giving us a choice. We get a choice of 2 on the second row and 3 on the trait row at the bottom. But it is still possible, as I have seen on the PTR, to roll 3 bad traits, which equally means it's potentially possible to throw 3 good traits. And I suppose they can argue it smooths itself out over the 3 relics. But actually, when I looked at a second relic, they were also pretty bad. I had 2 relics that are god-awful. Well, all 3 of the choices for each one was pretty bad. But conclusion from this one is they're not going to change it now, of course. But in terms of what you can practically do, like I always say anyway, if you've got high item level pieces, don't throw them away. That now extends to relics. If you've got any decent relics, even if they're a small downgrade on what's currently slotted, keep hold of it. And if it looks like it's just equal to what you've got, keep hold of it. Just keep it. Wait for the Netherlight Crucible to open. Have a look at it. It might actually be better than what you've currently got. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got any comments, and of course this is very vloggy, so people are bound to have opinions. This is an entirely opinion-based piece. Throw them down below. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.